This is Back to Back.
Yo, what's up, back-to-backers? This is Willy Joy. Welcome to the show. This is Back to Back. This is my podcast. It is November already. Holy shit, how is it November already? Halloween is over and done with. I felt like humanity stepped it up a little bit for Halloween this year. I saw some pretty good costumes. It felt like everybody was pretty locked in. And in the spirit of the season, my guest on the show today is Eptic. I thought it would be appropriate, between all the vibes of his illustrations that he draws for all of the artwork for his music. It's just kind of that cool monster sci-fi fantasy vibe. I love it. I love his music a lot. Really unique guy. He was great to talk to. He just got done with his headlining tour for his last EP, the Anti-Human EP. Great record on Never Say Die. We're going to get into that whole conversation in just a minute. But before we do, this episode is coming out Tuesday, November 6th. And what that means, if you live in the USA, if you're an American, which I know many of you listening at home are, today is Election Day. Over the last few months, I'm sure you've seen in your feeds, everybody encouraging people to go out, register to vote. Well, today is the day. This is the day you vote. So I urge you, I encourage you, please go vote today. There is really nothing more important that you could possibly do today. I don't really get political on this show very much, but I think if you read between the lines, it's not hard to tell where I fall. This is an important election, is all I'm trying to say. There is a reason why so many people are talking about it right now. And look, even if you didn't register to vote, you can go to the polls, you can get a provisional ballot, you can actually register at the polls so that you'll be registered for future elections. It is really one of the most important things you can do as a citizen of this country. So I'm just putting it out there. Keep this podcast playing, but while it's going, just mosey on down, go vote. All you got to do is just Google, where can I vote? And whatever city you're in, it'll pop right up. Go do it. It's easy. It doesn't take a long time. And let's have a say in what happens in this country. It's about time. All right, that's all I'm going to say. Moving on. I do feel like people have been voting for us here at Back to Back recently. I've seen so many posts, so many people telling their friends about this show, so much support from the community. Thank you to everybody out there spreading the word about what I'm doing over here. The show's been growing a lot. It's great to see. Keep it up. If you know a friend who loves music, tell them about this show. Make a post about us, make a video, a tweet, retweet something I post. Whatever you want to do, whatever you're feeling, that is the best way to help support this show, help us grow, get bigger, better guests, better content, more content, all of that. I do this for you guys, and I appreciate the love that you give me back. In that spirit, I hope you know you can always reach out to me. backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address, or you can hit me up on social media at Willy Joy or at backtobackpod. If you have a question, a concern, something going on in your own life, whatever it is, I'm down. You can hit me up. Let's chat. And if you're in need of new music, don't forget to check out the Back to Bangers Spotify playlist. That's a playlist I update every single week with brand new music for myself, my guests, music from the show, songs that we discuss, things that are related to topics on the show. Really everything you would need. It's a little companion for when you finish an episode. You can go check out the playlist, and I guarantee you'll hear something you haven't heard there before. It's a good one. I have a good time doing it. The link to that is in the description of this episode. All right, so let's get into this conversation with Eptic. Fun guy. We had never met before, but it was obvious really quickly that we were going to have a good time with this one. I think you can even hear it in the tone of the conversation. We were both, kind of excited to get into it. I've always been a huge fan of his music. I know pretty much every other DJ is as well. He's just one of those unique people, unique artists that's making really individual music. Doesn't sound like anybody else, and I think a lot of people are trying and failing to sound like him. You know, he didn't have anything specific to promote, so we could kind of just stretch out, get into everything, and there's some good stories in this one, man. Coming from Belgium, I think he has kind of a unique perspective on the whole dance scene right now, and, you know, I think his art background really kind of builds the whole aesthetic that he's going for, the whole vibe. You know, he does all of his own visuals and illustrations, art for his records, which I didn't realize at first, but it makes sense once you start talking to him. Super focused dude. We talked about how he linked up with Never Say Die. You know, I'm a big fan of everything they do, that kind of family vibe that they have. There's some dirt on his upcoming plans, you know, talking about his new DJ Snake collab that might be dropping soon. We talked about various sex parties that we've both DJ'd. It's not something I share with everybody. But yeah, man, we just had a great time. If you haven't checked out Eptic's last record, Anti-Human, the link to that and all of his tour dates, everything Eptic, is going to be in the description of this episode. Do yourself a favor and go check that out. He is one of the people that I would really point to that is just doing it right now. You know, he's got his own thing, his own lane that he's carved out for himself. So this was great. Let's get into it right now. This is me and Eptic back to back. Let's go.
It's very satisfying hearing yourself in these headphones. My voice sounds so incredibly crunchy in these headphones, and it's very satisfying.
It really is. I think for me personally, putting on the headphones, it blocks everything else out, so you can just kind of focus in, which is great. But I almost feel like I sound smarter in my own head. Like I'll hear it, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I sound good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got that in combination with the glasses, so you're just sounding, looking, you know, you just like, I think
like
you're officially just
nerd.
a smart person now.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, I'll take that. How are you doing, man? You say you're a little tired.
You know, Willy, I'm always absolutely wonderful. I'm just a little tired, you know,
It's like the end of a tour for you, right? Almost?
yeah, so like we're getting near the end, so, you know, every weekend just traveling and not sleeping very much, and then not sleeping very much during the week, you know.
Yeah.
I've not been making smart decisions as well. Like normally in between the tour, I just rest out. I've just been partying in between as well.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's that snowball effect that if you just start doing it a little bit, it just gets out of control, right?
I'm 25 as well, so I'm getting really old.
You are a young man to me, sir. When you started touring, were you like really just partying like crazy, like I think most young people are when they start touring? Like when did it start that it was maybe interfering with other shit you should be doing? Because I definitely went through that period.
I think definitely the begin period was like that. When I first, like, it's not even touring, it's just when I started playing shows. So everything started taking off slowly when I was actually still in college, my first year of college.
Yeah.
And I didn't even play in the US, but I played so many shows in Europe that I didn't attend enough days in school to actually get through the first year. So I had to do it all over again. And then I was like, okay, I need to slow down a little bit.
But you actually chose school, like you went back to school.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I mean, that's a rare story, I feel like.
Yeah, it's a rare one, but it was quite funny because once I got through that first year, so it was like 3 years basically, every year I had this feeling like, should I quit school? Should I just start doing the DJing thing full time? And I doubted myself for so long that at the end I just finished college and I was like, you know what, I might, I can just carry on now. I can just have it all. So
Right. So wait, what were you going to school for?
I did illustration and graphic design.
Okay, sick. That makes sense then, because that's something you sort of carried into what you're doing now, right? With I know that you're sort of involved with a lot of your own visual aesthetic.
Yeah. I basically I basically do everything for my project. All the visuals, all the EP covers, whatever you can think of.
Yeah.
The only time I've I've actually recently only outsourced something for the first time, which is for my like new tour visuals, and that's all the 3D stuff. Just because I just generally don't know how to do it.
Yeah, and that stuff is so time consuming too.
Yeah.
I feel like that's another full-time job, you know.
Yeah.
How was that process of farming it out? Were you kind of like, letting your baby out into the world? Did you kind of give them some direction, see what comes back? How involved were you?
Oh yeah, I was an absolute control freak with it, because for all the visuals, I send them sketches of how I wanted it exactly, like all the measurements, whatever. And honestly, like these guys are called Rockstar or something like that, and they absolutely killed it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and that must be actually kind of fun in a way that if you can sort of get over not doing everything yourself, then all of a sudden you have all these resources available to you, right? And your ideas can kind of get bigger.
Yeah, definitely. It was honestly a really nice surprise, because I'm so used to doing everything myself, and I get really OCD about it as well. So every time I would outsource something, I would just end up being like, no, that's not the way I saw it.
Yeah.
And this is the way you should do it. And fuck it,
I'll just do it.
I'll just do it myself, because I'm way better, smarter, taller, and stronger than you.
Oh, boy. And is this your first... I was stalking you on Twitter earlier today. Is this your first headline tour?
Yeah, it's a little bit overdue, because I've been...
I was going to say, I was surprised by that.
Yeah, because I've been roaming the lands for some while.
What took you so long, man?
It was more like...
I'm kidding.
No, I've been wanting to do it for a while, but it was more, like bookings agents and like managers, like decisions. And this year we were just finding like, fuck it, like let's just do it, like let's see how it goes. And like thankfully it's been going really great. Like I didn't really expect it, but like it's going super well. So I'm very pleased with myself.
As you should be, man. I think the phrase like first headline tour, that's a big deal for anyone who does what we do. You know? I think regardless of the size of it, the scope of it, the outcome, just the fact that you did that, that's a big deal. Not a lot of people get to do that. I have a theory in my mind. I was like, man, I'm surprised that this was your first headline tour. I had this theory. You tell me what you think, that I made up about 10 minutes ago in the car, which is that I think your music, which I'm a very big fan of, it's very unique to you. And I think there's this certain like... weirdness is the word I keep coming back to, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think it's a very unique thing that you do that's different in a lot of ways from sort of a lot of your peers. And to me, the fact that you've sort of stuck by the spirit of the music that you make, that I think kind of runs through everything you've put out, maybe that's why it took a little longer. That's my theory, is that I think when somebody, sort of just sticks to their guns and really doesn't pander to, whatever's hot, all that it takes people a little longer to catch on. Yeah,
that might actually be it, because, in all honesty, like, I mostly make dubstep, and, like, dubstep has been going through weird phases as well.
Yeah. I want to talk about that.
Yeah, and I'm definitely one of those people that I've never really cared about what's popular. Like, I just want to make what I think is dope, which is what I think will work in the long run as well. Like if sticking to that means that it took me a little while longer, to like get up here and like do the headline tour and whatever, and like make all these next moves, like so be it. Because at least like I get to do what I think is really cool.
Yeah, I agree, man. And have you always been that way? Like even when you were starting off, did you ever try to sort of fit in and find you weren't really able to? Or have you always just kind of, been like, this is what I want to do, I'm going to do it?
Yeah, not really. Like I said before, I'm just really, really stubborn.
Yeah.
I've had a bunch, like I've had so many people tell me, like, oh, maybe if you try this, or like you try a little bit, like a more commercial approach, or like when trap came around, they were like, oh, maybe, you can make some trap. Or when future bass came around, they were like, oh, like, that's really hot right now, maybe you can do that. Like, I was always like, I will do that on my own time. I just want to make this right now, and that's what I'm going to do. And sometimes it doesn't work in my advantage. Like sometimes it does.
Right.
But yeah, I'm just really, really stubborn when it comes to like creative stuff.
I don't think that's a bad way to be honest with you, man. As long as you're, hearing people out and then deciding that you still know best, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, of course.
And did you ever, because I do this sometimes, and definitely with certain sounds, I'll be like, oh, this is, a new style, a new trend. Like, I wonder what I could do with this. And I'll sit down and I'll try to make it, but I just fail, for whatever reason. Because there's a certain, like, weirdness, not at all the same as yours, but like a lot of my stuff has a similar sort of weirdness running through it that I've never been able to get rid of, even when I really try. Have you ever just tried to sit down and make something like in a certain style and not been able to?
Yeah, that's actually quite funny because, what you said before, like a lot of people tell me like, oh, like, like your stuff's really weird and like different and like original in its own kind of way. But a lot of the songs, like a lot of my best songs, like started out as a complete ripoff of something because I thought it was so cool. And then it's just like a matter of fact of, like keep working on it and doing your own thing with it that it turns into something completely different. Like I've actually seen, I think it was Rob Swire who like wrote an article about it that when he did Pendulum songs, they always started out with just like ripping off like famous rock songs and then just like turn into their own thing. Yeah. Don't quote me on that. I just quoted myself on that, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah. Don't worry. I won't tell him. But that's a cool concept. I mean, I think that's something we all do that kind of people just don't talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime somebody puts out a new song, even with you, like the Anti-Human EP, which is what you're touring for and is your last big release, I heard the song, what's it called? Watch Out on there.
Yeah.
And the second I heard it, I was like, fuck, like that's the next song that's going to be made into like 20 million edits. And, I'm going to hear this everywhere. And I'm like, why didn't I do that? And it was not that I could have, but it's, those kind of songs where you hear it and you're just like, fuck, this is great. And it made me mad. It made me inspired, all those things that like all push us to keep creating. And I've definitely done that where I'll just sit down and like try to make a song that I really like. And I think by virtue of the fact that, everyone is just a different artist, if you keep poking at it, it's eventually sounds like you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because that song, like honestly, like it started out as a fucking like Skrillex ripoff, man, because like he does that sort of like something I'm like really jealous of, like he's so good at doing this like style just in between like trap and dubstep, and like that's something I've always been like really interested in. That's probably like my favorite stuff to make, but he just masters it. And I basically just like I genuinely just started out like ripping it off a little bit, but then like I changed it so much, I just like turned into something completely different.
Yeah, man. How does that process work for you? Is that like a conscious thing?
I don't really ever try and like remake a song
right.
or like make something really similar, but it's more like a vibe, like the way people use hats or like how they use drums or whatever.
And or a
like,
certain rhythm.
Yeah, and like I'll try to mimic that, but like even that, like most of the time I just like end up switching it because I feel like most of the times when you like if I would actually try and like rip someone off, like for instance, I'm a really big fan of, I don't know if you know him, like Space Laces.
Oh yeah, incredible producer.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of him, but like if I would try and rip him off, I would get close, but I would never get, like I would never get as good at being him as he is.
Right.
And the same goes for like, like Zomboy and like whatever, like all those guys. Like I could mimic it, but like I would never be as good. So like I always have to end up like just doing my own thing because that's what I'm best at.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, I don't think any of us are sitting around just trying to make the same songs that our peers are making. But it is one of those things. I mean, some of my favorite songs that I've made have definitely started as me just sort of trying to figure out how somebody did something in a song. Or, all that kind of stuff. Let's go back to the dubstep trap thing for a minute, because I agree that that's something you do really well, kind of skirting the line, using the huge interesting sound design of dubstep, but pairing it with different rhythms, kind of different vibes, different feelings. Again, I think it's really unique to you. Okay, so here's my thing, is that I love dubstep. I like it a lot. I don't end up DJing it or playing it out a lot in my sets, mainly in 2018 because it's just not my vibe, you know? Yeah. Like I love it. I study it. I like to listen to it, but I just don't play it out for what I want in a live show. It's not my vibe. But something like what you do, I would play out every single show, you know? And it was funny because I don't know exactly what the difference is, right? Like, is it just a mentality? Is it an approach? Is it something you think about a lot?
Yeah. So it's actually interesting. So what happened was I used to always just make dubstep, and you know, like it got played by like all the big dubstep guys like Excision and whatever, but it would always stay at that point. And then I did an EP called the Overlord EP, and on that EP, what I basically did with a lot of songs was I would use like all the sounds out of dubstep and whatever, but I sort of figured out that like if you use more trappy drums, it's more accessible to make more interesting rhythms and whatever, just because the drums aren't that heavy. Like if you use really heavy like dubstep drums, like you're a little bit more limited. So I started doing that, and I found out after I did that EP, like guys like like DJ Snake and Flustradamus and like all these really big guys like started playing out my tunes just because it was sort of on the like it was somewhere on the edge between like trap and dubstep. So it was heavy enough for the dubstep guys to play, but it was also sort of accessible enough for the trap guys to play. And that's when I like really started to think about it and like fuck with it.
An eye-opening moment.
Yeah.
Is that the EP that The End was on?
No. That's I think the End EP came right before. No, actually, the End EP was like there's even an EP in between. So it was
okay.
Yeah. That's a while ago, man. That's actually a really old song. Like I think it's like 4 or 5 years old now.
God damn, that's crazy, man. Because I remember when The End came out, and then there was that that huge Carnage and Bro remix.
Yeah.
That still gets played in half the sets you hear at a festival today.
Oh yeah.
That's wild, man. I mean, that's a hit. You have a hit, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It was weird to me as well, man, because I didn't even know Carnage made it. Like someone sent me a damn like Twitter video about it, like, hey, like what's this remix? And I was just like, I don't know.
Never heard it. Yeah. How do you feel about it now? Like, do people expect you to play it? Is it that kind of a hit?
Yeah, but like, in all honesty, like I played every set. So like basically what I do, like I play this edit where it plays the first 8 bars of the Carnage remix, so it just sort of teases it, and then it just like drops in my own version. So it's a little bit of a little switch up.
I mean, as DJs, we got to keep those going, man.
Oh yeah.
Are you a big edit guy? You make a lot of edits.
I used to not be, because I've been DJing since I was like 14 or
nice.
or 15, for a long ass time, because I used to DJ on vinyl. Like I used to DJ drum and bass before I even started producing.
Yeah, there we go. I was vinyl drum and bass DJ for sure.
Yeah, so I used to take so much pride into DJing because I've been doing it for such a long time. But this last year and a half, I've just been like busting out the edits left and right. It's so much fun. Like I love making them as well. I put so much work into it.
Yeah, and it's just a little secret weapon, right? Especially if you don't share them with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the ways you can really make a set stand out in this day and age, which really we all kind of need to figure out how to do at this point, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't know how you feel about festival lineups and, this kind of, to me, a lot of this year has just been this sort of monotone. Anytime you go out to a show, You hear a lot of the same things played in a lot of the same ways. And I'm somebody who started as a DJ as well. And DJing for me still is the most fun part of what we do. Like it's the thing I think the most about.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's always frustrating to just sort of see people doing it the same way, the kind of simple way. And yeah, so for me, it's like at this point, I don't care if it's done live or if it was done before the show. But if it's just an interesting switch up, something unexpected, something you can tell is individual to the person, right?
Yeah. I definitely feel the same way. Like, I used to be really elitist about it, where it was just like
everything had to be done live.
Yeah. But now recently, I'm just like, like I don't even care what people mix on anymore. Just if it's a good show, like I'll have respect for it. Like even if you would pre-record an entire set, like if it's a really good set, like I'll probably appreciate it.
Yeah, totally.
Because that's not an easy thing. But like I definitely feel you on that. Just festivals, I think the thing that's happening right now is. I remember a few years ago, I don't know if you guys had the same wave in the US, but everyone in Europe on main stage used to play Big Room House.
Oh, yeah, that hit here for sure.
And it would not it would not matter if you would walk in at like 3 p.m. or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Everyone would play the exact same songs, the same edits, like, you wouldn't really notice a difference. And I feel in the kind of music that I play, just like the trappy, dubsteppy, just like EDM stuff in general, like it's becoming the same way. Like everyone's playing the same edits and the same songs, and
even the production is starting to sound really similar. You know? And that's what killed Big Room House.
Oh yeah,
like because do you remember when Big Room House first came out? At least to me, it was really exciting. Like it was cool at first because it was just weird and kind of simple and heavy. I liked it. And then in a matter of like 12 months, it slowly killed itself. Like it just ran itself into the ground faster than anything I had seen before.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I think with like dubstep and trap, it's a little bit of a different ball game because there's still so many people doing like really, really interesting stuff.
Yes.
But then again, there's like 80% of people, and like again, like the production's really good, but like people just found this formula to what, like sort of works at a rave or a party, I guess. And it's just easy to do, like especially with all these like sample packs and whatever out there. Like there's so many people sounding the same, and it's honestly, it's so frustrating because like every single day I get in promos from different labels, like big labels, and everything sounds the same, and it just like it kills me inside.
It's crazy. Once you get on those promo lists and you really start understanding what gets put out every single week, you're right that it's mind-numbing. There's so much of it that sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like to this day, even earlier today, I got a song in my inbox that sounds like Lean On, right?
Yeah.
With the like pitched vocal thing and kind of that moombahton rhythm.
Yeah.
It's like, that song came out, that's an amazing song. Lean On, groundbreaking, amazing song. Came out so long ago at this point, and even then, there shouldn't have been a single song after that tried to do, I don't know, man.
Oh, yeah.
It drives me crazy sometimes. So you said you started at 14 with drum and bass in Belgium.
Yeah, in Belgium, yeah.
That's a lot, man. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about Belgium. You were born there? What part?
So I live in a city called Westminster, which is in between. Yeah, it sounds very foreign.
Yes, it does.
Which is somewhere in between Antwerp and Ghent. In Belgium. It's like it's a small town, like in between all the cows and the sheep and the old rich people.
Yeah. I'm picturing it now. Was it a nice place to grow up at least? Like pleasant town?
Oh, amazing. Yeah. I've had such a good time. Like I can't really say a bad word about Belgium. Like I've had such a good childhood and just like growing up there in general. Like,
and I mean, if you're still there now, man, you must love it, right?
Yeah, I do. It's definitely becoming a little bit, what's the word? I don't really have a word for it, but every time I come back to Belgium now, like it just like everything seems so simple and
Yeah.
like
A little smaller.
yeah, like so much smaller and like like all this stuff my friends are working on is like on a smaller scale and like
Yeah, it's weird to go back. So, I was born in Minnesota and grew up there for the first 18 years of my life. And then I remember for the first few years after I moved away, I'd be so excited to come back to, in my mind, I guess I'd just jump back into my life there. But then you go back and things are different. Some people left. You can't really do the same things you were doing when you were, fully living the life there. It felt like a ghost town, kind of. Even though I still love it, my parents are still there. I love them. But yeah, it was just weird to go back, especially after traveling, right? And seeing the world and playing shows and that sort of. It's a weird thing to go back to sort of the quiet place.
Yeah. No, I totally feel that. Like I went back home. God, I went back home like a few months ago, and a lot of my old friends from high school and stuff were meeting up, and we got back, and I was like, okay, so are we going to a bar or whatever? And they were all just like, hey, like let's just get a bunch of beers and like go to the park and like drink. And like I went back, and I'm 25 now, and I was like, like what the fuck? Like I'm not 16 anymore. Like
right.
I'm too old for this shit. And I got like after that day, I got so depressed, because I was just like, I want to move on with my life. Like this is not what I'm doing anymore.
Yeah, and you can't enjoy it in the same way, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Like at age 16, that sounds like an awesome time. Sounds like the best idea.
Yeah,
it's funny that way, man. Once you. I don't know. In a way, I miss it because for me in Minnesota, around that age, like 16, like those were some of the best times in my life. Yeah. And I still have a lot of close friends from high school as well. I still talk to them all the time. But you can't get that vibe back. So in a way, I mourn it. Like I'm sad that I don't have it anymore. But I know that if I just tried to recreate it, it would be even worse, right? Like the only way to feel like that again is to go recreate it in a new situation, right?
Yeah. I fully agree on that.
Yeah. So for you, man, like growing up in Belgium, how did you even start DJing that young? Like, was there a lot of electronic music around you as a kid?
Not really, but one of my best friend Lucas showed me. So I used to be really into like the really, really typical like metal music when I was like 11 or 12. So
Me
like
too.
Slipknot and like Metallica and Black Sabbath
Korn,
and
all that.
Yeah, and all that stuff. And then I went to high school, and my friend Lucas showed me Pendulum. And then it went from like Pendulum to like DJ Hazard and DJ Hype and like all that sort of like more jump up stuff. And I got really into it, and I used to be really good at playing guitar. And just one day I stopped playing guitar, and I just bought these like really cheap decks, and I want to DJ now.
You just left guitar behind.
Yeah, and I just left. Like I can still play guitar, but like I basically abandoned it, which my mom thought was a little sad because I was just good at it at the time.
Yeah. A parent never wants to see a kid just sort of drop something they're doing well at.
Yeah. So I just started DJing, and then I had this record store, I think like a 10-minute car ride away from my house, and like every 2 weeks or something, I would buy one new record, and I would just like practice every day with like all these records.
That's cool. Just all drum and bass.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's funny doing this show and talking to a lot of people in the bass music world. So many people, myself included, have like metal backgrounds, and we're super into heavy metal. And then the connections to electronic music, like to me, it always just felt like the same thing. Like it activated the same part of my brain. And it was always funny to me that some people couldn't make the leap. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Even like you take Slipknot. You said you were listening to them. I was a huge fan of them. They were from Iowa. I was in Minnesota. It was kind of like this Midwest vibe when they were just starting out. And then later on, I found out that not only was there a DJ in the band, but that dude used to play at local raves, like kind of
Sid.
Yeah, Sid. But he used to do these raves in the Midwest playing drum and bass, like as what was his name? Starscream. I think he was DJ Starscream.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, man. So it's like I had actually already seen him play, and then I saw him in Slipknot. It was this weird connection, but I don't know, man. I mean, do you think, I feel like that spirit is still there? I mean, certainly dubstep now is, some of it's turning back into metal. It's like a weird infinity loop.
Yeah, I feel, like, I feel especially with dubstep and metal, like it's both heavy in their own way. And I think that's why a lot of, like metal fans and rock fans and whatever, like they sort of understand dubstep, because I think in a weird way it sort of has the same energy, like even at the shows, like people mosh at the shows and like they do all this stuff. I think it's just because like high energy, like it's like hype shit,
Yeah, no, completely, man. And I mean, there's this crazy headbanging culture in dubstep now, which to me, I saw that and I was just like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I'm used to this.
Yeah.
Like how do you feel about as somebody who's a prominent figure in the bass music world, how do you feel about the headbanging culture? Because I've talked to people on both sides of the aisle in terms of, we kind of wish people would stop doing this and start dancing again, or no, this is cool, fuck it, let them do what they want.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, I'm just really happy when people are really into it.
Yeah.
So I can't really say anything bad about it. Like, I would never do it myself. Like, I feel really awkward. I feel really weird.
Yeah.
Doing it. But, like, at the same time, when people do it at shows, like, it always sort of hypes me up, because I'm just like, oh, wow, like, they're just having an amazing time. And, like, at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that, man. I think that's a good attitude for any DJ. Like, it's a funny thing, because once you started giving that answer, I was like, oh yeah, that question is kind of judgy. And I was like,
no, it's.
But no, all I was going to say is that, like, I think it is really important as a performer. Like, I think we've all talked to DJs, friends of ours, who are like, oh, that crowd sucked, or, oh, all they were doing was like headbang or whatever it was. But at the end of the day, man, the fact that they were there looking at you while you DJed, that's the incredible part to me.
Oh, yeah. Like, for me, it's just like, as long as they're doing something, I've been...
as long as they're not looking at their phone.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think most of my US shows, almost all of them, like, and also in Europe and stuff, like, they're, like, even sometimes it happens on rare occasions where, like, there aren't that many people or whatever, or for some reason it's an awkward situation. Like,
we've all had those shows.
Yeah. So, like, people always seem to be really into it. But then, like, for instance, I've been playing a lot of shows in China and just in Asia recently.
Yeah.
And it's funny because sometimes, they will just sort of book you at a club, and they will book you because you're an international name, but they don't actually know what kind of music you play. So you'll get booked at this, like, super, super sick bottle service club. It'll be sold out,
Yep.
And everyone's just sitting at a table drinking $3,000 bottles of champagne and, like, eating fucking lasagna. And they're looking at you playing Throwing Elbows, and they're just, they're just looking, because they're like, wow, like, what's,
what is happening?
What's happening here? This is not, top 40 stuff.
That's a weird... you're not the first person to tell me a story like that, man. There's definitely something weird happening, especially with the China bookings right now, where I think dance music is just exploding over there, which is awesome.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And, like, I feel like the shows are either the most incredible shows you've ever played, or they're just really awkward because, they're at these clubs. But, like, every venue I've played, like, they have the most insane crowds. Like I've seen entire crowds. Like we were talking about the headbang before. I've seen like a sold out show with like 2,000 people, and they're all synchronized headbanging. Like every single person is doing it at the same
nuts,
time.
Man.
Yeah, it's almost like they met up before the show, and they were like, "Okay, like Randy, you're gonna do this."
It's like one of those challenges, like what they did to the Ray Shremmerd Black Beatles, where everybody freezes.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing.
Oh man, that's wild, man. Where do you spend most of your time touring now? Like, is it a lot in the States, or are you still kind of heavy in Europe, heavy in Asia?
So normally I just spend my off time in Belgium.
Right. I just meant like kind of where are you playing shows mostly now?
Oh, shows?
Yeah,
Okay,
because I think you started off in Europe, which is not the experience a lot of people here had, and I'm wondering sort of like how it balances out now.
Yeah, I play I mostly play shows in the US now.
Yeah.
I would say like 75 or something. Like it would probably be US. Then I've been doing a lot of shows in Asia, and then just when I go back home to Belgium for off time, like then I mostly just do a bunch of Europe shows in the weekends, just because Europe's so small, so like you can get anywhere in like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah,
so
it's amazing.
just like on the weekends, like I'll just do some Europe shows.
What's other than say like Germany, what's big for bass music? Like where do you play really good shows in Europe right now?
It's sort of weird.
Because I know Europe's tough for a lot of DJs right now.
Yeah, they're like a select few places, but the shows are always really, really good. Like it's honestly been like a while, because just I've been touring the US for a while now, but before that,
I mean,
like obviously Germany, like Boots House and stuff, those shows are always crazy. But for instance, I did a show in Hungary recently that was just like, that was probably one of my favorite shows I've ever played. Yeah, it was absolute insanity, and like I didn't really expect it for these guys called Next Level. And then
I've never been to Hungary, man. That sounds fun.
Yeah. I actually have some roots in like Hungary, so it was.
Oh, really?
It was
it was
like
interesting. Family or ancestry?
Yeah. I think my grandpa on my mom's side is from Hungary, and like his family's from Hungary and stuff as well. Yeah.
What brought your folks to Belgium? Speaking of, like, what are they doing out there?
I have an interesting family because everyone sort of comes from all over the place. So like my dad's dad is from the Netherlands, then his mom's from England, then my mom's from Belgium, and my mom's dad's from Hungary. So it's just like a sort of a mix from everything.
Yeah.
And then like his parents are Italian, and like it just like
just a real melting pot of Europe.
A good old, how you say it, smorgasbord?
Yeah, smorgasbord.
Yeah.
Goulash.
Yeah, of nationality.
What do your parents do, though? Like, what do they do in Belgium?
Oh, God, that's a tough one to explain. You know what? Like, my dad recently changed jobs, and I, like, for the life of me, I could not tell what he does exactly.
Yeah. I love those kind of jobs.
Yeah. But my mom, she basically like she works for this store, like a convenience store, and she just like manages like a shit ton of stores. Like I think she's responsible for like 20 stores or something. She's not the biggest boss, but she's like you know, a big boss, just like making sure like everyone does their job. Okay, she's been absolutely slaying it. Shout out, Mom.
Shout out, Mom. That's awesome, man. Were they supportive of your musical inclinations? Like we talked about, they were bummed that you put down the guitar. Were they kind of pushing you in an artistic direction? Or, how did they feel about it early on?
I wouldn't say they were like pushing it. Like I wouldn't say that, but they have been very supportive. So like, for instance, when I first started out, I was just playing a shit ton of shows in Belgium, and my mom drove me to every single one of them because, I was like 15 or 16, so she wouldn't really let me go anywhere too far just by myself.
Yeah.
So she literally drove me anywhere. Like even now, whenever I go to the airport, I'm always like, oh, I can just go there by myself, whatever. And she will not take it. Like, she will drive me to the
Oh
airport.
man, that's so cute.
Yeah, she's adorable.
If I lived in the same city as my parents, that would be my situation for sure.
Yeah.
Anytime I come home to like play a show in Minneapolis, they are picking me up at the airport. It's not a question. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm glad.
But okay, you're playing gigs at 15, 16. What are these gigs? How are you even getting these shows in Belgium at that time?
Oh my God. So when I first started out, it was just sort of, like people asking me like, hey, you want to play this show? You'll get like $50, whatever. Like people emailing me. Then
How did they know to email you?
I probably had it on my Facebook somewhere,
Okay. Yeah.
I think that was the time where you could still do that.
Right. Yeah.
But then like after that, I got this like bookings agency in Belgium, and it just started out with like playing these fucking sketchy ass shows. I didn't even knew Belgium had outskirts, but in the outskirts of Belgium, just like getting into the weirdest situations all the time. And then it moved on to like all the countries around Belgium, like France, Germany, whatever. God, I have a really terrifying story about Greece.
Oh, let's hear it, baby.
Okay, so so it was really funny because I think I was about like 16 or 17, and I got asked to play the show in Greece, and it was like the first show that was a little bit further away because like I could take a train to the Netherlands or to France, but I had to take like a 3 or 4 hour airplane to Greece. And my mom was finally like, okay, you can go. So whatever, I went. And I get to the airport, and this like emo guy is picking me up. And, even though this guy's emo, he was looking very sad. And, I was like, hey,
double
dude.
sad.
Yeah, double sad. Raw emoji. And I was just like, hey, dude, like, what's going on? And he was like, oh, the party's been canceled. And I was like, okay, that's a bummer because, I flew all the way to Greece. This guy was like, oh, yeah, but I know the owner of this club, and, we can just go there and have a good time. And I was just like, okay, whatever. And we start driving into the, like, when I say ghetto, I mean, like, I've never seen that before, like the fucking ghetto of Greece. And this is around the time as well when that whole, like, economic recession was happening as well. So
Yeah,
it was
were
just
not
like
doing so well.
It was grim. And we get to this club, and it has like 5 security guards standing outside, and it was this sort of like weird basement club. So like we go underground, and I have to say this as well. When I was 17, like I still look really young, but I look 12. Like I was so much shorter. I had the biggest baby face, and I get into this club, and everyone, like everyone was like dressed, like typical like goth style.
Okay.
And there was a stage, and I couldn't really see what was going on because everyone was so much taller than me. So I went up to the bar, and this owner of the club that's basically just like a fucking crackhead, me and him end up like hitting it off, and like I get really drunk. And then after, like 45 minutes or something, I'm just like, you know what? I want to know what's happening on the stage. So I squeeze myself through the crowd, and I got to the front of the stage, and there's this naked woman hanging, like completely tied up.
Oh, okay.
From these like thick ass cords, like from the ceiling. And there's this guy with a black leather mask just burning her with a lighter.
Ooh.
And, I go up to the promoter. I'm like, hey, what's the deal here?
Yeah, what the fuck is happening?
And he's like, oh, normally we do these 80s and 90s nights, but every 2 Saturdays we do this illegal bondage night, and people can just come up to the stage and do whatever they want. And I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting.
Great.
And
so happy I'm here.
Yeah, and I mean, in all honesty, like I ended up having a really good night because I was just like, wow, like when am I going to see this again?
Absolutely.
And still to this day, I've never been into that situation again. And I came back home, and my mom was like, how did it go? And I was like, oh, the show was great.
That's, man, I've had a couple weird ones in similar vibes. I once got booked for a show in San Francisco. This was a long time ago. Probably like through MySpace or, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I went and I showed up for the show, and there were like instead of like, imagine like a normal club, you know how there's like VIP booths on the sides or whatever. Instead of those booths, there were just mattresses on the floor.
What?
But it was like in a legit club other than that. So clearly they had like come in earlier in the day and moved stuff around. And I was like, okay, this is weird. But, you know, it was early in my touring career. I was kind of happy to be playing anywhere. Didn't really ask any questions. And then I went up later to play the show, and it just wasn't a very good show. Like, not a lot of people came. But all the people who did come, it seemed like they all kind of knew each other. And everyone was just sort of hanging out. No one was really paying attention or dancing. And I got done. I ended, I think, kind of early because I think the promoter was just like, don't worry about it, whatever. And I was like, okay, well, this whole thing has been a little weird. And can I ask you, you know, what is happening with these beds? And it turned out that it was like their monthly polyamorous like meetup party. And no one had bothered to tell me that that was the theme of the night. But
Polyamorous, wow.
Yeah. You know, and the thing was, I was pretty sure that once I left, like nothing crazy happened that I saw, but I felt like the second that I left, there was probably just a weird orgy.
Just fingers everywhere.
Yeah, among other things. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But these are the things, man. And again, I'm happy I had that experience, same as you.
Yeah.
I'll never have that again.
I sort of feel a little sad for like all those guys that, you know, they start making music and they get picked up and they instantly play these really big shows.
Yeah.
Because I feel like all these weird ass small shows where all that kind of stuff happens, like it just prepares you for the worst.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
like you can play a show and like it doesn't go as well and you'll just go like, well, at least it wasn't a weird orgy party in San Francisco.
Right. Exactly, man. And I just don't get upset about bad shows anymore because I had so many of them at the start by no fault of my own, really, that, you know, it just happens. I think it's part of any performer's career. You're going to have a bad one.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're probably the same way, but I think we both know people where if they have a bad show, it like destroys them.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you still, I mean, are you that kind of guy where you can kind of just let it run off your back?
Like if it's genuinely a bad show, like it doesn't bother me at all. But like, I think it like hasn't happened to me in a while. But like, let's say you're playing with someone else and they like do like a similar thing to you and they absolutely kill it, and then you go on or whatever, and it just like doesn't go as well. Like that, I actually do take to heart because then I just sort of have the feeling like, oh wow, like maybe just, you know, like maybe my set wasn't as good, and then you start doubting yourself a little bit. But
I'm very much the same. I relate to this.
But overall, like I'm just, you know, like I've been working on my sets and stuff so much, especially lately, that I'm just really confident in it. So
yeah, I feel you on that, man, because I think especially when you're playing with somebody else, or, you know, if you're playing with somebody else you respect or you like, and then for me, then I worry about, well, did they see it? What did they think? And I think about like, you know, was their set actually better than mine? Or did they just sort of take the energy in the room? And then I'll get really in my own head about it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I totally relate to that. So how did it, you know, jumping back to when you were just starting and you were going to Greece and playing these weird parties, like you said you were also doing illustration and graphic design. So did you think that was going to be your future while you were still traveling and playing shows? Like in your mind, what was sort of what you were going to be doing?
It was sort of a weird one because the only reason why I started doing art and whatever was just because I genuinely really liked it and I didn't really know what to do, because when I was in high school, I used to study science and I was really good at it. But after a while, it just wasn't interesting to me anymore.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who did art and it looked like so much fun. So I just, you know, like I kept nagging my mom like every day for like a year, like, oh, I want to do art next year. And like finally she was just like, you know what, you want to waste your future, like go do art, be a fucking Picasso. And I mean, I'm glad I did, but at the same time, like even when I went to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do exactly.
You just knew it was sort of the one thing you were good at that you really enjoyed.
Yeah, it was just the thing I was best at. So I was just like, you know what, like I might as well do what I like, and then I'll just see what comes up. And then the DJ thing was happening at the same time. But even when stuff was going really well, I just never really thought it was going to be like my future, or I would be doing it as an actual job. Like I just sort of rolled into it over time.
Just kind of an organic thing that eventually...
Yeah, it was just like I was doing it for fun. And then, you know, people were just like, hey, look at all this money. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll take it.
Were you doing anything, you know, after you got out of school, were you doing anything else for money? Did you have other jobs?
No, I've been really lucky. Like the only other job I've ever had was this summer job that I only did for a month for one of those stores that my mom works for. I sat behind the counter for a month. I hated it so much that I was like, you know, like, God, please, God, like, let me find something else. And I'm so glad the DJing thing came along because I'm so spoiled. Like, that's all I've ever done. Like,
yeah,
I've never really had like any other job that I didn't like or whatever.
That's great, man. That's super lucky, I think, but also very cool. I think it shows that you're probably in the right place, doing the right thing, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I would honestly not change it for the world. Like, I think people that know me know that, you know, like I complain about the traveling and stuff a lot.
As do we all.
Yeah. But, you know, like, honest to God, like I love it so much. And like, I think even though I love doing illustration and all that stuff, I think if I wouldn't play shows for like 1 or 2 months, I would absolutely lose my mind just because I love doing it so much.
Yeah, and for the illustration side, I mean, has that turned into something that can just be a hobby now? Like you don't have to, that doesn't have to be your job, right? So you can kind of, at least for me, I feel like once I found DJing, it was amazing, but now DJing is my job, right? And so it's work as well as being fun. But then, you know, it took me years to figure out that maybe I should have other hobbies.
Yeah.
But once I did find those hobbies, those I can just purely enjoy, you know, and I don't have to worry about how they fit into the rest of it. I mean, I guess it's different with you because you, you know, you use your visuals and your illustrations in your work. But I have to imagine it's still like a nice diversion. Yeah,
well, it sort of depends. So, like, actually, like, most of the stuff I make, just, like, design-wise and video-wise, like, it always goes, it's always for my Eptic project. Like, it came to the point where whenever I would make something, it would always be for this project. So, since, I think, like, a month or 3 ago, I just started, like, randomly sketching again. And, like, it's been feeling really nice. But,
that's great.
I mean, even if it's for work, it's still quite nice because I think almost everyone who makes music, you know, like you get writer's block.
Yeah.
So the advantage I have is, you know, where other people, they wouldn't really know what to do with themselves, or they would like start gaming or like doing whatever. I can just like shift my work to something else. So like if I can write music, I'll try come up with like a bunch of new visuals for my shows, or like I'll start working on EP covers or just like random graphics for social media or whatever. And that's really nice because it's not so monotone, you know. If I would only if I was only able to make music, like I think I would drive myself insane a little bit because I feel guilty when I'm not working. Like I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I relate to that too, man. I think being, you know, we're our own business, right? So it's anytime you're not working, you're your own boss telling you should be working. You know? Yeah, it's a weird thing. I relate to that strongly. But I think what you just said is a really big key for anyone who struggles with creative work or writer's block or any of that. Like what you just described with the drawing, that's what this show, doing this podcast, is for me. Anytime, you know, I'm feeling like I can't write music, like either I'll go and I'll talk to somebody like you, or I'll sit down and I'll edit one of the conversations, and it's related to what I do. It all sort of folds back into my whole career, but it's a totally different thing. You know, it's very much out of the I have to write a song mindset.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you go back, I assume it's the same for you. Like, I feel so refreshed, you know, then I'm like excited to get back to work.
Oh, yeah. I definitely feel that because I don't know how it is for you, but when I try and force myself to write a song, or I get in a cool remix request or whatever, and you get this idea like, oh wow, this is really important, like let's do it. I can never do it. Like I always have to do something else or just like do nothing for like 2 weeks or whatever, and then all of a sudden like I'll make the entire song in like a day.
I hate, that's one of my least favorite things, is getting that like remix request on a really tight timeline for like a big deal thing. I feel like I have almost never been happy with what I've done in those situations.
I'm absolutely terrible with it. Like, and my management will agree on this. Like they'll get in something like really big for a really big name. It's really important. And I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm working on it. Like I'm doing this and that. And then like one day before I'm supposed to turn it in, I'm like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, I can relate to that too, man. So how did you, from Belgium and from Europe, you're doing some shows, you're touring around, you get out of college. When do you first come to the States? How does that come about?
I think it was the first year I was in college. I just got signed to Never Say Die, my record label.
Yeah.
They just took care of the visa and all this stuff. And they were just like, oh, like, let's just try it out. Like, let's do a few shows in the States. And like, at first I only did a few. And then just like basically over time, but like I did all of this stuff while I was in college. And it was really frustrating because like every time I would build up like a lot of momentum and like I would sell like more tickets at the shows and whatever. And then I would have like exams for 1 or 2 months. And, I would be back at square one.
Yeah, you take a hit if you kind of go off the radar.
Yeah. So, it was definitely a weird one.
It's impressive that you finished school bearing that in mind, man. If that was already happening in the first year.
Yeah. Well, I actually, it's sort of funny, but failing that first year made it so much easier because, so basically I failed my main class, where you would actually have to be there. But then like all the smaller classes I passed.
Okay.
Because I had that 1 year that would always have to catch up with me. I could be like so much more lax with like the other classes and stuff, and like it didn't really matter that much if I like failed 1 or 2. Like I could always do it like the next year and whatever. And it made like, I mean, it was still a lot of work.
Yeah. Was it frustrating to sort of feel like you were sort of in between two worlds? Like I must imagine that you'd feel the momentum start to get going with DJing and then kind of have to pull it back. How did you deal with that?
I mean, it was a little frustrating, but then like I think just at the time I was just like really happy that I was able to do both, and it was both working out, because my idea was always, because I couldn't fully focus on producing and DJing, was, oh, by the time I get out of college, like it's gonna be over, like it's gonna be done. But then it sort of worked out, and I was just like grateful that it worked out. And then I guess like I just never really thought about it that much, because like I always had such a doom scenario in my head that it would end, that like if it just sort of like rolled along, I was already happy.
Sure, yeah. And I think that's another big key, is if you keep the expectations low and just put in the work.
Oh, it's all about low expectations, baby. Like every single show I play, I'm like, there's going to be 4 people there. They're all going to hate my set. The sound system's going to be crap. They're going to have old vinyl players instead of CDJs,
Yep.
Of the fucking, what was it called? Ronin mixer, Ronin.
The rotary one?
Yeah.
With all the dials.
Yeah, and then, when it ends up being really sick, you get so much happier. And then when it does get really shitty, like it's never as shitty as I expected at first. So
yeah.
Always happy.
I have a very similar mindset, man. I think it works out. And I think maybe the last component of everything we've been talking about is something you mentioned a second ago, which is your label, Never Say Die. And I wanted to make sure we talked about them for at least a second. Well, I'm curious, sort of how you started off with them, how you even met them. And I just wanted to talk about the fact that, you've been with them kind of your whole career. And I love everything they do. I think they're a really cool label. I think you guys have a family vibe that a lot of labels don't.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I think that's a reason why a lot of you guys on that label have been able to sort of keep doing what you do, is like there's that strength and that community feeling that you really don't see in a lot of other labels or in a lot of other artists who kind of band together. So how did it all start?
It's actually quite funny. So there was this other guy from Belgium playing a festival. He was playing a bunch of my shows, and then like Schism, the head of Never Say Die, was playing that festival as well. And he went up to him like a few times and was just like, oh, like, what's this song? And he was just like, oh, it's this kid from Belgium. And like, okay. And then he went up to him again later, like, oh, what's this song? And it was like, oh, it's this kid from Belgium. And it was really funny because like Schism hit me up over AIM or
Nice.
AIM.
Yes.
He was like, hey, I love your stuff. Like, you know, do you want to do an EP on Never Say Die? And like, you know, we even want to sign you like exclusively. And I was a really big fan of Circus Records at the time. So
Sure.
I was just like, nope, I don't want to. And
There's your stubbornness again.
yeah. And then after a while, you know, what like I told one of my friends and he was like, oh, they actually have, because this was at like the very beginning of Never Say Die. One of my friends was like, oh, wow, they actually got like all these cool artists. And then eventually I was just like, you know what? Yeah, you know, I'll sign onto the label, whatever. I didn't really think about it that much. And then it just like turned into this great thing. I definitely like that thing you said before, that family vibe is something I love so much because I think probably all the like main guys on the label, like they're all my best friends. And probably in my sets, like when it comes to dubstep, like I mostly just play their stuff because like they just genuinely make like all my favorite dubstep stuff. Like they all have their own sound. Like they don't make the generic bullshit
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
most
I think
of the time.
that's another thing the label's been really good at is
Yeah.
sort of finding people with that really unique vision. You know, nobody's really stepping on each other's toes.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, again, like Schism, like, you know, I really, really look up to him. He's a great DJ. Like even though he doesn't make tracks anymore, he's a fucking great producer.
Yeah.
And he just knows how to pick him. Like he doesn't make any bad decisions.
And for you, I mean, was there ever even a thought after those first couple of years of like going somewhere else? Because I think a lot of DJs will sort of, you know, start off with one label and then eventually they get big and they, you know, wander off somewhere else. Who knows why, all different situations. But you guys have stuck together and I think it really helped everybody, you know?
Yeah. Well, it just made, well, before Never Say Die, I was on this like really, really small label and then I got picked up by Never Say Die. But I think the reason why I stuck with them for so long is just because they're, you know, just badass. Like I think it's a badass label. They put out good music, whatever. But they've been really, they're just really good and open about things. So for instance, like I'm not really like exclusive. Like if I want to release on a different label, that makes more sense. You know, like let's say it's like a really, really trappy thing and it would work better on Mad Decent or like Oslo or something. Like they would say like, hey, release it on there.
Sure.
Like, you know, I did like a house thing and we released it on Spinning. They just see the big picture. They're very supportive. Like they just make good decisions. And like, I think that's just why, like I've never, you know, like I have the feeling with a lot of labels, you know, they like sort of lock you into a contract and like, it doesn't really make sense for the artist. It only makes sense for the label.
Yeah.
And that's why even in these days, I don't even think a label matters that much anymore, just because of, you know, like SoundCloud and streaming and whatever. Like, it doesn't mean as much as it used to, but like, yeah, these guys are just so solid. And
yeah, I mean, I think they're one of the few labels that do still mean something, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think people know that there's a certain level of quality to that name. Yeah. Maybe the last sort of component of all of this that we haven't talked about yet is your actual production and how you kind of came, like, how did Schism, you know, those first couple tunes that he heard, was that early days of your production? Had you already been producing a lot at that point?
I was already producing, like, I think when I met him, because, like, I think I started DJing in, like, 14 or 15, and then, like, producing when I was, like, 15 or 16, like, you know, and those first few years were just like me started messing around. Like I didn't mean to do anything with it, but probably when he signed me, like I think I was producing for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And you know, as well at those times, the production standards for dubstep and whatever were just so much lower. You know, like you can't compare it to now.
It's crazy now, man. It's I always say it's like an arms race now.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I was even listening to some of your early songs, like the very first Never Say Die releases, and I mean, they were super fun. It was super nostalgic, like, kind of like Rusko vibes. I was like, man,
Yeah.
I miss when dubstep sounded like this, but it was well produced. Like even back then, how did you even learn? Was it all self-taught?
Well, I guess I'm just a fucking badass, baby. No, yeah. I think it was just like all the rest of the kids right now, just like watching YouTube tutorials and stuff.
Yeah.
And, like back then there wasn't as much information as there is now. And, like there weren't really any sample packs and whatever. But, like then again, we just had this whole sort of like community of producers and everyone talked to each other. I think around that time was like the time I started talking to like Abstract and stuff as well. And like we just shared a lot of information and like learned a lot of stuff from each other.
He's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's another like super individual, unique producer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you learned, the same way a lot of people learned, and it just kind of went from there. Did you get you seem like you're a guy who once you sort of latch on to something, you really go all the way with it.
Oh yeah, I got I got so obsessed with it. I have the same thing with like all my illustration and animation stuff. Like I didn't, like I went to school for it, but like all the stuff they teach you there is so basic. So like most of it is just, like self-taught.
Yeah.
And yeah, the same goes for music. Just, like studying stuff and trying stuff out. Like I still like a lot of times I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing. That's why like sometimes when I get into the studio with like really big guys or whatever, like I feel a little bit intimidated or like embarrassing because I genuinely just don't really know what I'm doing.
Right. And you probably, if you're the same as me, you don't know the right way to do things.
Oh yeah,
quote,
yeah. Because I know so many people, like for instance, like Zomboy and stuff. He can just look at like spectrum analyzers and like whatever. Like he could mix down the tune on like shitty headphones just by looking at his plugins and whatever.
Right.
And that's something I can do like my entire life. Like when I produce, it's just by ear. Like I'm like, oh, I think this sounds good.
Yeah. But I think that's what makes you sound like you.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think it's dope, man. I like that. And throughout this whole conversation, at least I keep coming back to this idea that I'm glad you're here doing what you're doing, man, because it's, as somebody who also appreciates a weird streak and an individualistic streak, I'm happy you're doing it, man. What else is coming up for you? What should people be looking out for in the next 6 months, 12 months?
Well, I guess I can announce it. It's like already online, but I got a collab with DJ Snake coming up, which I'm like
I saw that.
Super, super excited about. It's probably like my favorite tune I've ever made. Just like club banger.
Hell yeah.
And then I've just been, I don't really know why, because normally whenever I'm finished with an EP, I can write songs for a while. But I've just been on a roll and like I've been doing this really cool remix, and then I've got a bunch of originals lined up. So like I think I'm just gonna like do a bunch of singles, and then I don't know, like I think I'm probably already just gonna start, like brainstorming about like another EP or an album, and then start brainstorming ideas for the next tour.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear you do an album. I want to hear what that sounds like.
Oh yeah, I'm actually pretty decent at doing like really emotional stuff as well, and like doing the really melodic stuff, but I just never put it out.
That's what I'm saying. I want to hear that, man.
Yeah, so I want to put out an album so I can just put all the so I can justify putting all the weird shit on there.
Hell yeah. Well, you got my vote, man. This has been great. We usually just end by asking a really simple question. You don't have to think about it too hard. What's the last time in your life, or just any time in your life, when music in a moment really deeply affected you or changed the way you thought about something? This is the first thing that pops into your head. Doesn't have to be significant.
Jesus Christ. There's actually, so there's this, my girlfriend's sister and my girlfriend always listen to this song by Billy Joel called The Longest Time.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we always listened to when I first met them. And I don't really know what it is, but like when I'm like back in Belgium and I don't see them or like whatever, and like I listen to that song, like it just like, it always makes me like really sad in a way, because like I always remember those times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a great answer, man. I love that. I have songs like that too, because music can just transport you to an emotion.
Yeah,
right?
it just like associates you to like a special moment in your life or like a good time. It's like, it's really cool.
Yeah, I agree, man. All those times we were talking about when we were 16, all of that is tied to music for me.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome, man. Thank you for taking the time to do it. Good to talk to you. Congrats on the tour.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was a good old talk, Willy. Let's do it again sometime.
Let's do it, baby. when the album comes out, we'll come back. We'll do it again.
Yes, sweet.
All right, man. Peace.
Yeah, peace. Bye.
All right, that's the show. Shout out to Eptic for coming on. Great to talk to you, man. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I had a blast. For everybody out there listening, shout out to you. I hope you enjoyed this as well. My name is Willy Joy. You can check me out, willyjoy.com, or you can holler at backtobackpod@gmail.com or at willyjoy or at backtobackpod on all social media. You can also follow Eptic, and I highly recommend you do. The link to everything for him is going to be in the description of this episode. Keep an eye peeled for what he's going to do next. I know I definitely will be. That's it. That's it for this one. Go vote if you haven't done it. Thank you for listening to Back to Back. Take care of yourself. Have a good week. Be good to each other. And I'll talk to you soon. All right. Peace.